Okay, so this is probably like the 6th time I've tried to record this. I keep making really big mistakes with what I'm doing, or just getting interrupted with other things. So what I'm going to try and do now is make this the one. So this is a tutorial, like a version 2 of the initial tutorial video that I uploaded to YouTube. What I suggest is if you use My Traffic or Ultimate Traffic 2 packages, I would personally, if you're serious about doing this and serious about managing your own AI manually, I would uninstall both those packages completely from your sim. I think for My Traffic, what you pay for and what you get back in terms of realism and being able to immerse yourself with amongst other models that look real, My Traffic isn't the one. I used to use Just Flight Traffic series, and I remember when I first got that thinking they looked brilliant, and then over a slow period of time started to realise that there was actually better models out there, and you're paying for a package that, yes, does all the work for you in one swift installation, but in terms of the quality of the models and what you're paying, which for some of us it's expensive, you're not getting a good product. So when I found out that you could get and you could build AI for free with models that are on par with payware and look just as good, it was a done deal. I started getting into AI with the World of AI group, and they quite a few of the members at World of AI at the time were members at the Alpha India group. So a lot of that material, a lot of those flight plans, a lot of the paints that were used in the World of AI packages were done by members of the Alpha India groups, or what would become the Alpha India group. So that's why those packages that you install from World of AI look so good. We use the same models or more recent models that have been released or built since then, just because they are the best quality that you can get. They're good on frames, and obviously there's a huge team of us that do tests on the flight plans that get released to AIG, and then we've got a massive team of painters. I'll show you some of their pages as well, where you can keep up to date with what's going on and what's released. But as a whole, I just wouldn't recommend an AI package that you would pay for, because they can't keep up to date quite as close as we do. So that's why I recommend going freeware. It takes time. It took, when I first started doing this, it took me a good while, but if you're serious about it, you will follow through and you will get to a point where you've got all the airlines that you want installed to FS, and along the way you'll understand and sort of learn how to look out for errors, and when errors do arise you'll find out how to cope with those and how to fix those. And in most cases it's always user error. It's never an error in terms of the traffic installation. It's just the way that you've done it. Maybe you've made an error that you've not seen until you've been made aware of it afterwards. There is a program as well that I'll try and remember to point out that you can run, and it will basically look out for errors in the numbering of the CFG files, and it will also look out for incorrect typos, which again can cause errors in the textures displaying or not displaying in the sim. So there's a lot of freeware things that you can use that help you along the way to look out for things that you might not so see with your own vision. And again, if there's questions that you might have after this video, you can just post them on my YouTube comments section, and I will try and get back to you. It's quite a lot to cover. I'm going to try and make it as simple and as easy to understand as possible. There's quite a lot to go through. I've got a few little pointers written out just here. So let's go forth. We're going to imagine that you've got all of your AI traffic uninstalled. If you don't have any AI traffic installed at the moment, excellent, it's a clean plate. Michael Bamford, I think it is, I might be wrong, doesn't have any AI, or doesn't up until now anyway, which is good. That's how you want it to be. What I would suggest doing first, and this is for those of you that have got default FS traffic operating in your simulator, I would suggest turning that off, because all you're going to get is a load of new proper AI traffic operating in your in your sim alongside the default, which you don't need. They don't run on any real-world flight plans. They aren't real-world airlines, so you can get rid of those. And the way you'd go about doing that is, as you can see here at the bottom, you've got boats, carriers, and aircraft. You'd need to either remove this file here out of the world scenery folder, put it somewhere safe, or you can turn it off like I do. If you know how to turn those files off, then please do so, and what you'll get is a file that turns white, which basically means that it has now been turned off. And what that does is deactivate the default traffic. It won't mess around with any of these traffic folders that you will use down the line. It just turns off the default AI, which is what you want. You want to try and free up as much of the frame hogging, because AI does take quite a fair little bite out of the performance. So you can turn that off, and then from there you want to make sure that you haven't got any of these sort of traffic files for Ultimate Traffic 2 or My Traffic left behind, because if you're using those and not uninstalling those, you want to make sure that they're all gone. So technically, once you've done that, you should, if you've got things like, I don't know, Budapest, as you can see, there's a file there for the Budapest scenery. You should just have those, and then right underneath something like that, you should then have these files here, which are the traffic files, and obviously that one, the aircraft one, turned off. That's what you should have. It should just be like that. Everything in between there are all traffic files that I've installed. Pretty much, you might have the odd sort of Cardiff prepared 3D file there for the Orbix /29 Palms South Cardiff scenery. You might have GA traffic, a bit of a tongue twister there. So a couple of Orbix files you might have in between as well, but in terms of the actual traffic files from the Ultimate Traffic 2 or My Traffic, they should all be gone. Moving on, you want to just have a quick look in your SimObjects Airplanes folder and just make sure that's clear, and all you've got in there are the default user aircraft for FS, and then any payware aircraft you have, like I have the Aero Soft Airbus, there you go, minibus series, which is the A318 right through to the 21. You want to make sure that that's there and stuff. But in terms of AI traffic, once again, that should all be clear. The AI models that you see here are all the recommended AI models that we use at the moment. Going all the way down, I don't need to go the whole way down, but it just gives you an idea of what the layout should be. Alright. For those of you that are seeing this video for the first time or are curious about what it is we're using to install flight plans, you can go to Google and type in AIFP. Your top result should be stuff for FS. You open that up, and you'll get a page that gives you sort of some information on what AIFP it does, and it's a screenshot of the actual home page. Roll down to the bottom, and you can download AIFP from this little link here that's highlighted, and that will download into your PC. In the meantime, I would suggest then creating a folder either on your desktop or wherever you want to keep it out of sight. I don't know if you're like me, I try to keep my desktop tidy, but when I say that, pay no attention to the stuff at the top. I am working through that. That's stuff that's been released and stuff that I'm planning on installing once I've done this video. So yeah, I've got my AIFP in this folder here, alongside all these other like paints and flight plans and stuff that I need to get around to or don't have plans for yet, but will hopefully following this summer season. But yeah, it's in here, and you would drag all the contents of that zip from AIFP into this folder. So you pull everything that's inside that zip that you've just downloaded from AIFP into here, and this is what it should look like. You'll always double click on the AIFP 3 icon, and that will open up the program that will install flight plans into whatever sim you're using. Your target version, if you've got Prepared 3D already installed, it should pick that up and be highlighted on Prepared version 3. If you're using version 2 for whatever reason, it should be highlighted on that, and if you're using FSX, it should be on that. Your time zone, if you're in London or this part of Europe, you're going to have it on Greenwich Mean Time. Otherwise, you can set it to whatever time zone you're in, and don't worry about the local time, that's fine. In terms of seasons, at the moment I can't click, but once you upload a flight plan into AIFP, you'll be able to check how you want the flight plan to be installed in terms of standard or summertime. I just keep it standard for all of my flight plans. I'm not that anal about it. At the end of the day, this is a tutorial on how to get AIFP working for those people that aren't too sure on how it works. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just make sure that your time zone is correct and the target version of the simulator you're using is correct. This bar at the bottom hopefully should already be set to where you want the BGLs when you compile, where you want them to be stored, which was in that folder before where you saw the track folders for the different airlines I have. That needs to be in Prepared 3D, Scenery, World, Scenery. And that's where you want it to install those files. That's fine. Where you can get AI flight plans, the latest AI flight plans, is the Alpha India group. They do get uploaded to AvSim, but after some time. I've got all of this winter to upload. So if you want the flight plans as and when they are released, I suggest you get signed up to the Alpha India group. Just waiting for this window to open up. And here it is. You can get the address. There you go, alphaindiagroup.net. I suggest you get yourself over if you're not already a member and sign up. Once you have and you've been accepted, the page is unchanged. It's very, very easy to navigate. There were talks about the web page being updated and rebooted, but I kind of like it this way. I just find that when you open it up on this particular domain, you get the list of the latest topics that are on. If you go into this one, this is Johan. Johan is one of the main administrators at AIG. He does paints and he does the occasional flight plan. Basically, his most recent post was regarding the FedEx MD-11 paints, and they've just been rebooted with correct light maps for night textures. So it's just good to see what recent topics have come up. Here's Marwal here, who's also a member, who's one of the big painters, and he recently released these paints here that you can see. He updated the Etihad Airways paints to the 2016 stickers. And then there's a load of Air Europa ones as well. So it's a good place when you log on for the first time, or for the first time in the evening when you've just come in from work, or if you're at work or on your phone, you can just see what's happening and keep up to date with new stuff that's coming out. Go into the forums discussion tab, and where you can find the latest flight plans is in the AIG announcement section. That's where they'll always get uploaded, and it is the AIG 2015-16 flight plans. Now that's for winter. As you know, summer is around the corner, so this is last summer. You can go in there and you could spend a good amount of time working your way through this. How many pages is it? 23-page list of different airlines with all the maps, so it shows you where the airlines are flying. It's all based on real-world movements. It's top-notch stuff, believe me. It's way better than My Traffic or the Ultimate Traffic 2 could ever be. So anyway, yeah, 2015-16 flight plans, and at the moment there are 10 pages of that. Things have been pretty slow this winter for us at AIG, as compared to other winters. That's because a lot of us have had things going on, time commitments and stuff like that. But nonetheless, there are still 10 pages to get yourself through. And in terms of what's left to come out, there's still a good few things to come. We are wrapping up, but there are one or two surprises still to come. In terms of airlines that you don't tend to see that often from us, just because of data and how hard it is to get the correct data for those airlines. But yeah, 10 pages for you to work through. And all of the flight plans should, when you're logged in, you should get the zip download locations just here. So you've got Sunwing here, and there were a load of Sunwing Airways paints released by Kyle. Top notch, really, really good quality. So those plans accommodate those paints. There's still a few missing, but it's really difficult to keep up with Sunwing because they're just leasing out aircraft from Thompson and Travel Service. It's really difficult to keep up with. Cayman Airways, again, Viva Aerobus, it just goes on, and even some surprises like the Hainan Airlines group we've got all of that here. I think the only airline that we're missing from that group is the Yangtze River Express cargo, but that was because data was so poor. Trying to get those 747s and A330s, I think they still operate the 30s, to get them released into this release for the month of April. Nonetheless, what I'm going to show you is what you do when you download flight plans. I just want to check something before I get started. I should have checked this before, but bear with me 2 moments. 800. Be right with you people, sorry to keep you waiting. I just want to make sure that when I do this demonstration we don't double up on something. Okay, that's fine. Okay. We should be good to go. Right, so with AIFP you've got that opened up. For example, you downloaded from the dispatch section, as I was just saying, you downloaded an airline. I'm going to give you an example. What I would suggest as well for those of you that are new to this, download small airlines first, or download all of the airlines that you want, British Airways, American Airlines, Delta, you name it, whatever. Download all of them, put them in a folder for now, and you can work your way through them, but I would suggest installing small airlines first, just so you can get used to how it works. Don't go straight in for Delta Airlines because it's got a huge list of aircraft to install. So pick up the small airline. I'm going to do this one as a demonstration. You double click on the airline, and what it does is breaks down what's in that folder for you to see. You've got the flight plan list, so this shows you all the information based on real-world movements. Obviously it's probably not going to make too much sense when you look at it like that, it just looks like letters and numbers, but FS and prepared and all that understand what all that means. Excuse me. I think looking by this, they've got four 737-800s in their fleet, this particular airline. If you want your aircraft to show up all the time, with AIG we always have the percentage at 1%, which will mean that they will always show up. I know there are some flight planners, especially at UTT and other sources in that tend to change this percentage. If you're downloading your material from AIG, chances are it's always going to be 1%, which is what you want. If not, I would suggest changing that percentage to 1%, just to make sure that whenever you fly into whatever airport it is you do and will see these aircraft at the airport. Funny enough, changing those percentages from anything but 1% can have you miss those aircraft, and they will show up on a, they won't always show up as a complete fleet. And I found that out by changing those to 1%. I was seeing a lot of, especially when it comes to airline fleets, like VIP fleets and the BBJs, you'd hardly ever see them, but then I find out when I went into the flight plans that the percentages were not all at 1%. So make sure that when you are looking at that, these are at 1%, and hopefully when you compile, when you go to these airports, provided you're there at the times that they are, you will see those aircraft on the ground at whichever airport you've started up or flown into. The middle column displays the airports that this particular airline will fly at. If they're blank, that's probably because it's an airport that's not built into your sim, or it's a new airport that obviously won't register in the sim because the sim was built. The sim just doesn't recognise the airport because it's new. Again, so don't worry too much about that. And on the right, the far right, you'll have the aircraft list. Now there are only 2 aircraft variants for this aircraft. If you double click on one of them, what you'll see is 2 green highlighted aircraft types. You've got the standard and then the short nozzle. The difference is minuscule. If you've got a sharp eye, you'll notice the difference, but otherwise you wouldn't notice the difference between a standard engine and a short nozzle. You really wouldn't. Nonetheless, what you would do normally is press download on one of these. They should be blue when you open this up. 9 times out of 10, hopefully provided there are paints available, these, when you go into them, will be blue, not green. You download the link, you basically double click it, or you can press this and it will say it will start to download the paints from wherever they're sourced or hosted, and they'll drop into wherever your downloads drop into your PC. For me, they'll drop into this particular folder here, and I would then drag that paint file, that zip, into this folder here, repaints, and that's where I've dropped it. That's why they're green. Once you drop that zip folder into the repaint section in AIFP, like so, they will then turn green. If they don't, what I would suggest is close, select, boot it up again, and then go back into it, and they should be green. What you can then do is, and I'm hoping I get this right, because I did this earlier on and it messed up, so just bear with me, I'm hoping it plays ball. Yes, it will. Good. You can double click, or you can press install, I think, but again, I've got a different way of installing, but don't worry about that. We're not even going to go into that because that gets confusing. That's because I know AIFP and I can do things my way. I wouldn't suggest even wanting to know how else you can install. Just go with how AIFP says it should be done. Say, for example, this is your first AI package that you're installing, be it BMI Regional or one of the other small ones. This message that comes up says will be saved as aircraft 402. Now I've got 401 aircraft entries for the 737-800 at the moment. So what it's saying is it wants to now make the 402nd aircraft entry, which is what we want it to do. We want it to add on to what's there already. What it's confirming is the location that you're going to install these flight plans to, which is correct. It's Lockheed Martin Prepared 3D, Sim Objects Airplanes, and then into the FAIB 737-800 winglet version. And breathe. You press yes, and then what you're going to see now when I do this with the short nozzle version is this following message. We're going to press yes because we want to do the same for the short nozzle, and then this pops up. And what it's saying is it's found, it's obviously doing checks before it installs, it's looking out for errors for you. Do you want to overwrite this folder? Now the aircraft that we just installed, the standard version, has the same file name, which is right here. You can see that. So what it's saying is this second aircraft variant has the same, in terms of how it will install, has the same name, which isn't going to work because what you're going to end up doing is overwriting the folder you just created with this folder. So do you want to overwrite it? You don't. What you need to do is give it a new name. So you're going to press no, and simply you can tell it. You can see it's a short nozzle version. So what I do is add SN to the end and press OK. Done. Now you can differentiate between the standard and the short nozzle by seeing. We'll go into it in a minute. But what you'll see is there will be a folder next to the standard folder which has SN, and that's why we are now good to compile this flight plan. It's nice and quick. That's all it is. As you can see, you can now press compile. I'll press it. There you go, and that's what it should do right there. Compile successful, and that's done. That airline is now in your sim. It's good to go. I'm going to show you what it looks like in the sim. You can go back into your AII. Actually, wrong my math this evening. FAIB 737-800 winglets folder, and if you go down to C. There it is, right there. So you've got your standard and then your short nozzle version. If you go into them, that's what you want to see. Super. Good to go. If you go down to your aircraft CFG folder, and if I was to roll down, I can see they're right there. So 402, 403. For you, these will be aircraft 0 and 1, if these are your first, for example. And you've got everything there, so it's there. You just want to make sure that this texture name matches up to what's in the sim, which we've already seen. So that's fine. It's good to go. Another thing that I've noticed on the forums and people moaning about aircraft that are not parking at gates and all that business. This section here. This tells the aircraft where it should be going and what it should be looking out for when it gets to an airport or when it boots up and where it should be located. Now, you always need to make sure that this section here and this section here are always in block capitals. They always need to be in block capitals. If they're not, they will not park where they're meant to. And I found that out. there are a couple of painters, especially in places like AFSIM and stuff like that, where they'll upload their own repaints, and the aircraft CFG file isn't quite as tight and neat as it should be. So you have to make sure that if you want the aircraft to park at a gate, this is gate, and I think you can have two variants. So you could have gate and ramp, so the aircraft will be located at gates, and if they can't fit on a gate, they'll fit on a ramp, or you can have cargo. Obviously, I just want these to park at the gates. You've got to make sure so the parking code is correct. So that's got to match the airline's, I think it's their IATA code. I think I want to just make sure of that actually. Oops, sorry. Massive typo there, forgive me. Yeah, you can double check that, the ICA code, not the IATA, forgive me. You want to make sure that that is in the in this section here, the ATC parking codes, and they should park in their correct places provided your AFCAD or ADE file for whatever airport you're using has the correct information. It should correlate and match up. But yeah, that's basically a really basic and easy demonstration on how to install a small aircraft, airline rather, into Prepared 3D. When it comes to the big ones, I might have to go into AFSIM to get Delta. I'll give you an example of Delta. The reason why I'm going to choose Delta is because I know that they have a complete repaint list for such a big airline. We've got all the airline, all the paints for that already. So that's good. In terms of some of the big airlines, it's really difficult to keep up, like China Eastern and Air China and stuff like that. It's really difficult because they have such big fleets with a lot of specials and stuff like that. Why aren't the flight plans showing up? So what I'm downloading, what I'm looking for, are Delta's summer plans from last year, because we've got summer due for this summer. We haven't had them for this winter. There you go. So this summer 2015. Get down. Excuse me again. Right, so AIFP. So say now you want to go on to a big airline. You've got Delta here. Do as you did before. Takes a little bit of time to upload that into AIFP, and then you've got all of this information, this big wodge of information on your screen. We tend to break down the aircraft types and their destinations. So you've got the 747-400s here, the 777-200 LRs, the ERs, the A330s, and so on. These are huge. Delta Airlines is one of the big boys for us, as is American Airlines / US Airways, Southwest Airlines, British Airways, EasyJet, Ryanair, all of it based on real world movements in a week. So we'll take normally the busiest week of a season, summer, winter, and then we'll take that week and put it into this format, which basically FSX or Prepared can read, and it will place your aircraft or airlines at the airports they should be at the time they should be, to flying to the destinations they should be. It's quite incredible. It really is. The work that goes into it is amazing. So I don't know why people would want to pay for my traffic and UT when you've got such up-to-date, high-class material here. It just doesn't. I don't understand it. And I see people sort of talking about 100% realism and all the rest of that, and they're using my traffic. It doesn't make sense. The program is so easy to use as well. As you can just see from doing a small airline, it doesn't take very long. So again, you've got the flight plan list for Delta here from last summer. The airport list, again, it's a fairly long one. And then you've got the aircraft list, which is fairly long, to be said. Double click on one, they're all blue. All blue, so you've got all the paints that you need for the most part, and I think for the vast majority they're all HD. 777s, 747, the A330s, all on HD paint kits that were done by JB and areas of FAIB. You've got 767s, 757s. It's a complete paint list. You can have fun installing those. You literally download all of those, drag those zips, place them into your repaints folder. What you will need to remember to do is delete whatever you had in there before. Keep it empty per airline that you do. And you should be able to do that same process all the way through. You may find sometimes AIFP won't always recognize the name of the folder. It's pretty good at picking them up, but not always, and you might have to sometimes direct AIFP to that particular airline or aircraft folder rather, so it knows where to install them. But sort of 9 times out of 10 it's pretty good at finding those locations and just confirming with you that it wants to install these particular textures into this particular AI aircraft folder. So you can sort of work your way through Delta, and by the end all of these should be black, and if they are, you can then compile, and then that's another airline done. It will take a little bit of time, especially with the big ones, but that's why I said it's probably best to start off with small airlines first, like EasyJet Switzerland, which I think has 2 aircraft variants of the A319 or the A320 standard, and then they've got sharklets as well now, I believe, in the EasyJet Switzerland fleet. So just do small ones, get used to it, understand how it works, and then move on to the big ones. It's so rewarding. If for whatever reason you make a mistake, you can always go to the scenery folder in Prepared or FSX. Say you make a mistake and you compile by accident. Go into your scenery like this, then say you made a mistake with Delta and you're not ready to finally to compile and move on to the next one. You can literally just delete and it will say, do you want to do that? Yes. The wonderful thing about doing that is you can delete that out. I'm not going to because it's fine for me. All the aircraft that you've installed will remain installed. All you're deleting is the BGL, the information out of the sim, but the aircraft will remain installed to wherever they were installed. The 747s, the A330s, they'll all remain installed, which is great, because then you could then boot up that file again like this, and all of these will still be black, and all you're doing is compiling the BGL file back into the sim for whatever reason. I don't know what mistake you may have made, but all of those remain black, so you won't have to do the process over and over again, which is really good, I think. It's very easy. You can delete them when and how you wish. For example, say you wanted to remove Delta out of your sim completely, you would have to delete that BGL from the scenery folder, like I just showed you. You'd have to move that out. And then in terms of removing the aircraft, it's a slow process, because what you'll need to do is find each aircraft type and remove them out. You'd have to delete them out. It's a slightly slow process, but I can't imagine why you'd want to remove an airline like Delta out of your sim anyway. Airlines that become defunct, for example, would be the only reason why I'd see why you'd want to remove an airline out of your setup. But I'll show you how you can do that if you wanted to. Say you want to remove the Qatar Emiri fleet. You delete this texture folder, move that out, you say yes. I'm going to say no because I'm keeping it in there myself. Then go into the aircraft CGF file. You need to locate wherever that is. Down there it is at the bottom. Highlight that, delete that out, and then you'd go to File and Save, and that's it. You've deleted it. It no longer exists. I'm going to undo that because it's fine for me. Don't want to save. No, I don't. But that's how it is. But you'd have to do that for all the aircraft types. So they've also got A319s and 20s and stuff like that. So you'd have to go into each of those folders, find the Qatar Emiri entries, delete the entry out to CFG, and also the folder out of that particular aircraft type. And that's how you delete. There are a lot of other functions with AIFP, but these are the basics. It's, like I said, it's a very easy program to use, and it's very user friendly as well. It breaks down a lot of information for you. One thing I do, and I was talking about this in my last video, is I have I don't see the need in installing a complete airline's fleet if I'm not going to fly to particular places that that airline flies to. I'll give you an example. LAN. LAN have a huge South American operation, but they also fly to North America, and they also fly a small part of their operations to Spain. And maybe a few other places, I'm not 100% sure, but I know they're flying to Madrid. I fly to Madrid, I fly to North America, so what I have done with LAN is install the long haul section of their operations, and then left out the short haul. I'll give you an example of what I mean. I need to go on to AIG. I'm going to be taking you into the internal area, just so I can give you a preview, because we have LAN in beta at the moment. Should be out very soon for all of you to use. Beta testing. Where are you? LAN. So you're seeing, that was top secret stuff you were just seeing there. So this is LAN. This is in beta, 1 green, so it's nearly good to go. You've got the 787-900 routes, so they fly to Sydney, LAX, JFK, Orlando, Miami, Cancun, and Mexico. So I would install the 900s if we had a 900 model. There is a FSP 900, 787-900 in production at the moment. So very soon there will be a 787 model for the 900s. There's already a 787-800 by UTT. There will be also an FSP 800 version that will follow the 900. So in time you'll be able to retire your UTT 787, because I am pretty sure one of our painters by the name of JB will be doing the LAN series when that model is released, and you'll be able to retire your UTT model when that happens, which is good. The 800 routes, again, LAX, Orlando, Cancun, Miami, Paris, Madrid, and Italy, I believe, MXP, I think. And then you've got your 767 series, again, JFK, Miami, Mexico City, Los Angeles, and Madrid Barajas. So that's where that's as far as I went with that. So I installed up to the 767s. And left out the A321s, I left out the A320s, and left out the A319s. I do fly into Mexico City, but it's not the end of the world if I don't see the A320s. You know, there's enough other traffic going on at Mexico City as it is with Aero Mexico and all the other operations, Aeromar, blah 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 blah. So yeah, you can pretty much install, say, I don't know, you wanted to install all the Delta aircraft up to the 757s, but then if you want to leave out the MD-90s and the 737-900, if you were aware of where they flew to, and if they didn't fly to any of the airports that you flew to, you could leave those out and leave those red, compile, and it would double check with you. It would say, do you wish to leave out XXX aircraft? You press yes, and then it would compile for you, and what it would do is literally just install the aircraft that you have installed, which are black, and it would leave out the ones that are red, and those wouldn't be active in the sim. So what you're doing essentially is saving disk space on your computer, and also there's no point in having them installed because you're never going to see them if you don't fly in South America. So I think in terms of us bringing in maps onto our releases, it really does help those users that want to be cautious of, you know, installing aircraft that they're never going to see. I think it's great that we break that down now. So there's food for thought there. But if you want to install everything, please do. I'm not telling you what to do. That's just how I do it. I've started sort of watching out for that now. Especially in terms of like China Eastern and China Southern. They fly to places in China that I never do. So I only tend to install the heavy aircraft that will fly into locations around the world that I'm going to be flying into. But otherwise I won't bother with the 737s and the A320s because I'm never going to see them. So that's that covered. Sliders in your sim. With FSX, I know that there's a GA slider and then there's a aircraft traffic slider. I won't recommend putting your slider up to 100%. If you're using our flight plans, you won't need to. Set it at 50% and leave it at that. There's underneath that there's a GA slider, the generic general AI aircraft folder. Whack that down to 0. you can't differentiate, that's fine. Just keep it down at 0. If you do find time to install GA aircraft from Ultimate GA, you can find those packages on AFSIM. If you look, you will find that those packages have all the BGLs and folders set up as they need to be. You can literally just drag and drop. Those will install as standard aircraft traffic folders, so you don't need to worry about putting GA aircraft at 50% or 100% because it completely means nothing. That slider doesn't need to be there, believe me. So just whack that down to 0 and have your main aircraft traffic slider at about 50%. Believe me, it works fine. You don't want it at 100%. I don't know why people do that, because then when they want to go to Heathrow or Frankfurt or Madrid and they start moaning about frames, it's because you've got your AI traffic stuck at 100%. It doesn't need to be like that. Set it at 50% and let it be that. If you're doing a flight and you want to have sort of live traffic moving around you, as it will be once you sort of take this avenue, you can be sat in traffic for a good 1 hour before you even get airborne, especially somewhere like Heathrow with British Airways and Aer Lingus around you. You just set it at 50% and you will eventually get onto the runway, maybe 15-20 minutes after you've pushed back, maybe sooner. It depends on how long it takes you to set up your FMC, provided you're using PMDG or whatever it is you're using as a payware aircraft. With traffic and boats and stuff like that, I tend to stick boats at a really low percentage. And if you're flying out of an airport like Ibiza or Palma de Mallorca, or if you're flying out of one of the Canary Islands or St. Martin, you're not going to see any yachts or boats from the altitude that you're going to be flying, so just have it low, 5-10%. With car traffic, again, car traffic looks great in Prepared 3D, especially at night, but again, I would keep it at a sensible percentage, maybe 15%, and let it be that, because if you're messing around with aircraft traffic and car traffic, again, you're playing on the grounds of out of memory caution or crash to desktop. So have that at about 15% in terms of car traffic. And I think that's it in terms of sliders. As I said, I recommend doing small airlines first, so work through the directories that we have at AIG and download all the airlines that you want, put them in a folder and work through the small ones first, just so you can get used to it, and then move on to the big ones later on. What have I got here? Resources, where you can get paints from. You might want to take down these websites. Once upon a time, JB used to upload all of his material to AFSIM. Then AI got really, really serious and really started to lift off and became something quite sort of in its own world. Like AI really kind of grew and bloomed. And JB was probably one of the first, not the first, but one of the first to get his own website. There used to be a painter called Boris, who had his paints hosted on a site, and Boris was one of the best at that time for painting AI aircraft. He's now left the game, and I think his page also recently, or a couple of months ago, disappeared. But we've got JB. I'll be showing you some of the others in just a moment. This is JB's page, and there are a couple of other painters that are based here on this page as well. Marble and Nils are also based on JB's page, and they are top painters, believe me. So you can find out and you can get those paints from this page. He's recently uploaded his paints this weekend, I believe. You've got Canadian Armed Forces, China Eastern A321s. There's also recently been a new ATR HD paint kit for all of the ATR series that JB's just released. The man's a machine, he really is. All of these are available to download. They're, for the most part, always on a HD paint kit, provided there is one. You've even got a load of retro British Airways Landor paints that have come out, which was a complete massive surprise. So if you're a fan of the World Tales, you can get the 737 series with World Tales, and I heard that Mark is even working on the 747 World Tales, so good news for those of you that were into the World Tales when they were in the BA fleet once upon a time. So this is one place that you can get the best and finest aircraft repaints. You've got the list here on the side, you can see it just goes on and on and on and on. It really does. It's a brilliant, brilliant resource. There's another page here, Flying Carpet Hub. And this is another place that a good couple of our painters are based. You just had a preview there. All of these have download. Again, this was the most recent upload from Flying Carpet Hub. Again, really, really good material. It's a good place to check out. Flying Carpet Hub doesn't get updated that often. It's maybe sort of once every month or month and a half or so that it gets updated, because what they'll do is they'll work through the month and do loads of different paints and then release them all at once in one big bundle. Whereas you'll find JB on the web page that we were just on staggers it and does it sort of bit by bit. So you'll kind of learn over a period of time how different websites work and how they upload their material. Another page here. This is Johan's page. Again, there's a couple of painters that are based on this page. Johan tends to handle SAS primarily. He has done the whole SAS fleet, and recently just uploaded his ATR SAS aircraft on the new HD kit by JB. So these look really, really good now on a really good HD kit in your sim, especially if you've got Arlander by Orbix. If you can see these aircraft around, they look brilliant in the sim once they're active. There are flight plans that are hosted here as well. They're not AIG flight plans, but they are flight plans by one of the independent flight planners that are based at AIG, but releases his material independently, if that makes sense. A lot of his material is hosted here at the Flying Carpet Hub as well, and his material is handmade and it is of the finest quality. He prefers to remain independent rather than release his material under the AIG brand, if you want to so call it that. But again, I recommend having a look at his material as well, because it is really, really good. You'll know him on AIG as Frontier. What else have I got here to show you? There's another page here. Again, this page doesn't get updated as often as the other three that I've just shown you, but again, it has Air Berlin, it has Alaska Airlines, it has American Airlines. It's a good page. This guy is a very good painter, but he just doesn't update as often as the other three pages we saw before. But again, this is another page to take down and bookmark. One of the benefits of joining AIG is something like this. I'll show you it now. Screenshots. JB. So JB was the first page I just showed you, and like I said, he tends to release his stuff in a staggered fashion, and he won't announce it until it's all completely, it gets to a point where he's ready to announce it to everyone. Sorry, I'm working through the page just so I can give you an example. God, come on, where is it? Okay, here's what I mean. So at some point, JB will get round to announcing everything that he's updated or released. If you've not been checking his site or have missed them, and he tends to release it like this. So you'll get a massive list of what he's released or updated like this, and then you'll get examples of that work like this, so you can sort of see what it looks like. JB painted that. Temporary for WestJet. It's the MD-11s from the FSP, Norwegian. So when you see Ice Traffic coming out with their packages and the Sky AI and all of that, be aware that those packages are full of paints that JB has done, that Felipe has done, that Niels has done. All they've done is stolen these people's material, shoved it into a package, and then branded it as their own. They may have put a disclaimer in there, but they've not asked for anyone's permission to do so. So that's why when it comes to people asking why their packages aren't working and why they want help for ice traffic and all this, I'm not interested. You're using an illegal package full of material that Ice Track have not asked anyone for permission to do so. So if you're one of these users, I do harshly recommend you get rid of it and move on to doing it yourself, because at least then you know that you're installing material that was made to be installed manually and with the user's permission. You can see the list here, it goes on and on and on and on. high quality stuff. It really, really is. And this is where all these paints come from. So I'm telling you, I know for a fact, Ice Traffic and Sky Traffic AI, or whatever they're called, they're stealing work from these guys and then putting it into one big bundle installation package and then branding it as their own. So when you do run into errors and there's black holes and things aren't showing up correctly and you want to know why, that's because Ice Traffic haven't, you know, run through the process of making sure that their installation process is fault-free. But yeah, that's how JB releases his material as well. Coming up to about an hour now of yapping on. I'm hoping it breaks down things a little bit easier for those of you. It really is worth sort of working through and sort of building your own traffic. It's so easy to maintain. When the guys do release updates, for example, when Delta gets released this summer, along with all the other North American giants, technically speaking, you should be able to literally download the zip, boot it up into AIFP, and it should, all of the entries should match up from last season, so you won't have to go changing title names and things like that. It should match last season's, I would hope. It normally does, because it just makes it easier, and I think the only sort of aircraft you might have to install for Delta, for example, would be the A321, which has recently been brought into their fleet, and there is a paint for that at the Flying Carpet Hub. So this summer should accommodate that A321, and that will probably be the only aircraft you have to install, and then you'll be able to compile straight away. If you get stuck again in terms of updating airlines and stuff like that, do just message me and I'll help you where I can. It's just very difficult to cover everything in one hour video, you know. I've tried to be a little bit more extensive with it and sort of break it down for you. And like I said, and I've said it a couple of times already this evening, stick to doing small airlines first. Get used to AIFP. It is very, very easy to use, and it has a lot of functions, but that is the basics of installing an airline. It really is. It's very, very quick and very, very easy. Just make sure that you put the repaints that download off the internet into the correct folder, which is here in the repaints folder. AIFP repaints. Drop them. You can drop them all in there at once. So Delta, say you downloaded everything, the 747, the A330s, the 757s. You drop them all in here, and then they should all technically turn green, and you can do them one by one and make sure that they install to the correct locations, and then when you're ready you can compile. What else can I cover before I wrap up? Get rid of that because I don't actually even need this. I'm just using it as an example. Come back to that in a minute. What else can I wrap up with? Small lines, AI. I think that's about it. Yeah, like I said, it will take time, so don't expect to have a complete operating AI traffic set up within an hour. It will take time, it really will. Not all paints are available in terms of, you know, you can't get paints for everything. In time, things will be released. If they're red and when you upload a flight plan into AIFP, if they're not green or blue and they remain red even when you go into them and they still remain red in this section here, then that just means that there isn't a paint available and you'll have to substitute that particular aircraft for another. That's all that means. But for the most part, like you just saw with Delta, there is a complete operating available fleet there for you to download, which is great. But you'll find like China Eastern and China Southern, that there will be quite a few missing paints, but that's because a lot of them tend to have very special paints as well, which aren't always so easy to replicate, because it's all about finding a template that works. Emirates, for example, have special A380 and 777 logo jets for Arsenal and Real Madrid, and we just haven't found the templates to make those paints. And I've seen a couple of screenshots, especially on Sky AI, and they have the A380s, and I'm not too sure who's painted those, but the templates aren't of good quality. And you'll find a lot of painters won't bother releasing a paint if the template isn't good quality, because we operate on a basis of releasing stuff of the highest quality. We won't, go for second best. There's no point in releasing a product that doesn't look good. So I'm not too sure where Sky AI got that A380 template. I think it might even be a photo paste job, which will look poor in the sim. All it does is fill in a gap, a void. But hey, they can do what they please in that sense. I'm not too sure where they sourced those A380s and 777 logo jets, but to be honest, I don't really care. Again, like I said, get stuck, message me, please do. I'm going to upload this now. I'm not too sure when it will pop up online. I don't know, probably at some point this morning, in the early hours of the morning. But yeah, I hope that's covered things for those of you. I can't see why you'd get stuck if you follow what I've suggested. When it comes to airlines like Norwegian and EasyJet, just be patient. It will take time, but once you've installed them once, they're in there, and that's it. You won't need to do them again unless you're adding on to new tails that have been added, new logo jets. Those are the only things that you'll need to be adding in or updating, but otherwise they'll always remain in your sim, and you'll only install them once, which is good, so you don't have to do the process every time a new update comes out every season for those airlines. So yeah, that's it. If I think of anything else or decide I want to do a tutorial on anything else, I will do. You can get me on Flickr. You can find me on AIG, which is Bradley27, and then there's a little globe on my Daffy Duck thing on the side on the left, and you can see my Flickr uploads, screenshots. If you want to check those out, then please do. Sorry, I'm looking a little bit late. I'm tired today. I was out in London last night, so I haven't had a hell of a lot of sleep. So do forgive me for looking a little bit sort of lazy-eyed. I did promise a few people I would do this today. So here's the video, and I hope it helps you in your quest to get the best AI traffic in your simulator. Believe me, it is well worth working through. Get rid of my traffic, get rid of ICE traffic and all these mediocre packages. They really are. One last thing before I go, and I've just remembered what it is. You need to find a program. Close that. Okay, so you need to find a program called. Where are you? Desktop. When you go into AIG, what you want to find is this program here, and it's ACA 2016 Lite. You go into it, and if you just type that in, I'm sure it will come up, and it will give you a thread that's going on at the moment. And you need this program, and you run this program, so you can you can basically pick your FS version, obviously version 3 for me, prepared, and make sure the path is correct, and then scan for errors. And it will run for your complete list of aircraft, and what it will bring back are errors. Now, these here are fine, that's how it should be. So although it's brought up these errors, that's fine. But what you'll find is if there are errors with texture names that don't match up to what's in your aircraft CFG, if they don't match, if they don't pair up for whatever reason, you'll get a list underneath these or on top of these entries just here, and you'll need to go to those and correct them yourself. It warns you of what the errors are perfectly, as it should be. There aren't any active AI issues, which means that my setup is how it should be without any errors. But it's a program that you should use, and I recommend greatly. Another one is FS Renum, and again you can get this from AIG as well in the resources section. And what you can do is drag this into. So say I don't know. If you're like me, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Because I'm quite anal on things being in order, and I'm just a bit tidy. I'm a tidy freak. So I'll give you an example. Say you've got these two. You've got the new colours and the old colour. When I say new colours, it's the revised KLM livery, and the old colour, the old livery. Say, for example, KLM brought out their retro recently, and you wanted to add it in to your sim. I would basically slot the CFG info in the middle here. So what you then have is basically you're slotting in the retro entry into here. So what you'd probably have is aircraft, flight sim 2 and then flight sim 2 again for Malaysia Airlines. And what you do is you press save and then you drag FS renumber in like this, double click it, and it says hit any key to continue. You'd hit any key, enter, and what it would do is it would sort out all of your flight sim entries as they should be, so you won't get any dupes in terms of like number 2 and number 2. So you won't get a number 2 there and number 2 there. It will sort out your renumbering, and that irons out any possibilities of dupes and aircraft not showing up. Set that back like this, save, and then you go down and delete that back out. And all it does, it just keeps your library in order, number-wise. And the only reason why you do that is because you're keeping your airlines bundled together. So I want all my KLMs together, I want all Malaysia Airlines together, I want Sun Country, Fly Dubai all together, China Southern all together. So I know where to find them when I want to remove them or update them and things like that. Not everyone operates like that, but I do. And I like to keep it all bundled together in an order and together, because I now know that Oman Air and Garuda Indonesia are all together and they're not going to be sort of scattered around in different sections of this aircraft list. But again, that's just for the ultra tidy person in you, and that person lives in me, unfortunately. I'm going to stop yapping on, because I'm now just going to complicate you and give you one too many things to look out for. But again, it's all pretty easy as long as you are aware and conscious of how you're installing things. Don't rush by any means. Get used to it. Do small airlines, like I've said 1,000 times, and you should be on your way. I hope that helps a lot of you. Get stuck, let me know about it, but otherwise I'm signing off for the evening. You get some some kip, and then be up first thing tomorrow morning for work in London. But otherwise, thank you for sticking with me for an hour or so, and I hope that helps a lot of you.